early 7th century. And this was well before Buddhism was established in Tibet. He married the Nepalese princess Brikuti and the Chinese princess Konjo or Tsoi Pemo, who were both Buddhists. And they brought along the family shrines with them to Lhasa, the seat of the monarchy, and the king built temples there to house them. This landmark survived to this day, and it's the temple of Chokan and Rinpoche, the two temples that were built to house the statues of Buddha, as these two princesses brought along with them. But it was only during the reign of King Trisong Detsen that Buddhism was established as a national religion in Tibet. He invited two gurus from India, Guru Padmasambhava, who is considered like the second Buddha by the Tibetans, and along with him came an abbot called Santarakshita. And the three of them founded the first monastery in Sami in Tibet. And also during the reign of Tri Rinpoche, the third king, or what we call the third Dharma king, these three are considered as the three Dharma kings of Tibet. Many artists from India, Nepal and China were invited to Tibet to construct and paint temples and stupas. So now we see that during the beginning of the 8th century towards the 9th century, a lot of artists start coming into Tibet. And it was only in the mid-15th century that the first prominent Tibetan artist that had a very profound impact on the style of painting, and he was called Menla Thondup. He was born in around 1440 in a place called Lodak Menthang. He was a brilliant scholar who mastered many writing scripts that he was taught. However, it was only after he left his wife that he found his vocation, that he started to have an interest in painting. And the style of painting that he first studied was the painting style that are found in the stupas of Gyaltse. And those painting styles were, of course, of the earlier styles, what we call Pelri, or the styles of the Newari that came from Tibet into Newar. So he studied that style before, and then later he revised the standards of proportions of the various religious motifs, composition and design, and he developed new textures and pigment techniques, and the tradition that he founded continues to the present day and is known as the Menri, or the painting style of Menthangpa. The most prominent difference that he made from the previous existing styles were to incorporate the blue and the green of the sky and the landscapes, and a lot of Chinese influence also came into his painting style. Before that, the style in Tibet was primarily, the background was primarily red or black, without any notion of space, so to speak. And I think that was the most important factor that he brought into Tibetan painting as we know today. And another outstanding artist of the mid-15th century, whose genius influenced the later development of Tibetan painting style, was a master artist named Khenchi Chenmo. Some even believe that Khenchi Chenmo preceded Menla Thondup and was responsible for establishing the most excellent Tibetan style. Now, whatever the case, these two painters established the style of painting that we now know or recognize as Thangkas today. And then I come to my tradition, which was founded in the 16th century, probably around 100 years after the death of Menla Thondup. And this style is very much a part of the Karma Kagyu school, the school which is the school as known as the Black Hat School, because the main religious, you have 4 different schools now in Tibet. The Gelugpa school, which is of course the most famous, and the Dalai Lama is the head of Gelugpa, the Yellow Hat School, and then you have the Sakyapa school, and then you have the school Nyingmapa school, and then you have the Karma Kagyu school. And the Karma Kagyu school prophesied that an incarnate artist would propagate his activities and influence in the field of creating sacred images. And in accordance with his prophecy, Namkha Tashi, founder of the Karmagati tradition, was born in Upper Yolung in Tibet. He studied with a famous artist of the time called Kunchok Pende, who was considered to be an emanation of the Chinese princess Khonjo Tsoyipemo, the wife of Songtsen Gampo. Because in some ways, a lot of Gardri painters considered her to be the first person who brought the Gardri influences into Tibet, even though it was centuries before the style was officially sort of established. And from this person, from Kunchok Pende, he studied the very, very strict proportions laid down by the Sharli. The Sharli is the Eastern casting method of India, and it was considered one of the most beautiful and elegant casting style in India, and from there they took the proportions of the deities. And furthermore, he was instructed to base his painting style on several models, and the models were mainly Chinese scroll paintings offered to the fifth Karmapa, and then there's a painting called a Dashirma that was drawn by Chinese artists while witnessing a sort of miracle of the third Karma, Rangjung Dorje, who showed his face on the full moon. And then there's another painting which is called Yerwa Rawama, that is the depiction of the old 16 Arhats, or the 16 elders in the old Chinese style. And he was furthermore, he incorporated elements from the three countries in his painting style: forms or bodily proportions according to the Indian tradition, colors and textures in agreement with the Chinese method, and the composition of the general layout in the Tibetan manner. So this combination brought together the outstanding features of the three great countries, or the three great Buddhist countries then, and consequently established the Karma Gadri, or the camp style of the Karma Kagyu school. The Gar in the Gadri refers to the early customs of the Karmapa hierarchs, particularly the seventh Karmapa, who spent most of their time traveling from place to place with their numerous entourage living in felt tents. This mobile monastery or city of tents came to be known as the Karme Chogar Chenpo, the great religious encampment of the Karmapa, or Garchen Zamlingchen, the great encampment that adorns the world. The customs, traditions, and styles that emerged from this became the so-called Garluk, or the camp tradition, and in particular, the painting was known as Gartri. There were, of course, a lot of very prominent and influential artists also in the camp, or working closely with the Karmapa. For example, there was an artist who was called Thakor Abjam and Tempa Johnson, who were sculptors, and there is also a line of sculpting images according to the style of the Karmagati. But it's a pity because that style has now kind of like died out and doesn't exist anymore.